pleasant good evening to all my fans across the globe. It's my pleasure to be back with you. The last presentation was 13 days ago, but of course, you know we are committed to the work that the channel is doing. We are committed to discussing with you, from hearing with you, and it's indeed my pleasure to be back to continue the work of this channel. Our usual approach, we will start off with a motivational word. We'll tell you about our services, we'll do the presentation, and then we will give you a reminder about the services. So, the motivational word today is one for reflection, as all of the others have been, in that across the globe, the discussion on the dysfunctions in families is very much on. And we will agree that given the rocky nature of family situations across the globe, we need to reinforce the foundations. So let us reinforce the foundations of family, because today's presentation will focus on exploring how we define family and exploring the meaning behind family. So my motivational word to you is to reinforce the foundations. And as you know, without foundation in anything, nothing can be built with strength. So to return and restore the strength of the family, we need to reinforce the foundations. So whether it involves, just as a means of illustration, driving piles or putting down granite rocks, we need to reinforce those foundations so that the challenges can be faced with greater resistance. So reflect on that word, think about it, and see what role you can play within the whole framework of that quotation. So at this point in time, I would like to again remind you that we are available. Our organization, Motivational Speaking International Limited, we provide one-on-one counseling services, also group one-on-one coaching and group sessions. We run a host of workshops, whether it's leadership, entrepreneurship, psychology, sociology, history, community development, and a host of other topics. And of course, we have our ongoing courses, the 4-week public speaking course entitled The Fundamentals of Psychology, costing $1,200 for students and $1,800 for the general public. We have our 10-week course, The Fundamentals of Psychology, exploring concepts, theories, experiences, how our cognition, emotions, all of these things impact our thought and behavior. And we will do that over a 10-week period where we charge $3,800, and you can pay it in one payment, two payments, 3 parts, or we are willing to even offer you payment in 4 parts to do this course. We also have the course Mastering Emotional Intelligence and Becoming Emotionally Resilient. And that costs $1,800 for students, $2,500 for the general public. For groups of 5, $7,500. So if you do it as part of a group of 5, you'll be saving $1,000. So whether it's a coaching session, whether it's a counseling session, whether it's a workshop, or one of our ongoing courses, we are prepared, we are ready to serve you. All we are waiting is a call or an email. So call us at 1-868-778-5141, 1-868-779-2544, or email us at leadershipwithadifference@gmail.com. So having shared the motivational word with you, having reminded you of our services, I will now go into this evening's presentation entitled Exploring the Definition of Family and the Meaning of Family, to towards a stronger world. So as usual, I, Imo Ramesses Bakari, your psychologist and life coach, it is my desire for you to go higher. It is my desire for you to go higher so that you can unleash your fire. That's my desire. So welcome once again as I now begin this evening's presentation. So we have heard and we have been told in and out of school that the family is the foundation of society. So it's a statement certainly that requires examination given the rocky nature of family life in many quarters across the globe. However, the definition, how do we define family? What is a family? How it is defined? What is the role of families? So we also know of a number of traditional definitions. A parent of one or two living with their children. Alright, we know what that, single families, nuclear families. Then we have the extended, where you have parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. And then within the modern dispensation, there are many versions of family that have raised a lot of alarm. Alright? Same-sex families, and many people certainly have strongly opposed the question of people of the same sex constituting a family. We have blended families, people of previous relationships marrying, bringing their offspring together. And we have many other dimensions that we can debate and discuss on another occasion. But are those traditional definitions are the definitions we are prepared to go by? If we are going by those definitions, we know that if we use Trinidad and Tobago as an example, there is a steady increase of divorce rates over many years in Trinidad and Tobago, and I guess the pattern might be similar in many other jurisdictions. All right? We have the recent phenomena, well, not so recent, but certainly more highlighted, and the brutality is more in the eyes of everyone, of the very brutal ways that some individuals have chosen to deal with family dispute. So the question of family life has been brought to the fore on many fronts. Issues among school children across the Caribbean, other parts of the world. All right, the pandemic and the whole escalation of domestic violence, and the brutality that has reared its ugly head in a vengeance that has certainly destabilized people mentally, emotionally, and otherwise. And of course, lives that could have made significant contributions to humanity have been needlessly taken away because of uncontrolled emotions and unsuitable approaches to dealing with conflict. So this discussion is before our eyes, it's before us for our consideration and for our exploration. And we know, if we look at some fundamentals, if we have strong families, we can say in the course of time we will have strong nations. If we have sick families, whether it's in terms of physical health or mental health, obviously we will have a sick nation. We will have sick economies, weak economies, because the health of a nation certainly is strongly correlated to the strength of the economy of a nation. Because unhealthy people cannot grow an economy. Of course, we need strong fiscal regimes, strong economic planning, ideas and strategies, but we also need healthy people. So, healthy families are important. Emotionally and psychologically strong families are important to deal with their own existence and their own situations, but also we could extend it to the nation, because we can certainly agree families definitely will constitute the bedrock, and we need to have stronger families. So that's the typical definition. And also in another typical realm, many families, given the COVID-19 pandemic and even from before, have been challenged to take care of basic needs: food, shelter, education, medical expenses, and you name it. And these are basic needs. Maslow in his hierarchy of needs spoke about physiological needs, food, water, security needs, shelter, source of income. Then you have esteem needs, the need for respect, need for a sense of belonging, and of course, at the top of the pyramid, the ability to self-actualize. So many families, in the very basic sense of their existence, are very much challenged. There are millions of persons who have been placed on the breadline since the pandemic, and that situation has not made the very basics of family life possible. All right. Certainly, people have lost houses, they have lost vehicles, they have lost marriages, savings have been depleted. So even in that basic sense, in terms of being able to satisfy fundamental needs, people are so challenged that certainly their psychological state and their physical state would not be in a state that could contribute in a positive manner. So that's why I said, we need to explore how we define family. Because is it just limited to blood relatives? Or could we say, the people you work with them for many hours every day? Certainly, you may not be connected by blood, but that arrangement and the consistency of the arrangement and the interaction certainly will constitute a family arrangement. And then the superiors within that setup will need to be in a position to provide a comfortable working environment, an environment that will foster bringing out the best in individuals so that they can contribute to the best of their ability. So you need the resources, you need a comfortable atmosphere, you need motivators, whether it's financial or otherwise, to keep that family in good order. And of course, you need good communication skills, you need good psychological skills. Because if the superiors, who we can equate to parents, are weak in those areas, there will be a lot of dysfunction within the families, within the work setting. So we can look at our family as those people who work together in an organization. You can look at a family in a broader sense in terms of people who live in a community. And within recent times, the Yoruba proverb that it takes a village to raise a child has become very popular throughout the world, and people have been citing it. We know yesteryear in the Caribbean, many children who may have committed a misdemeanor, they will have been disciplined by even persons who are not their blood relatives even before their actual parents disciplined them. All right, whether the method of disciplining was right or wrong, we were just showing that the approach then was certainly, favorable in the community seeing itself as family and not just the blood relatives of those individuals. So that definition certainly must be extended beyond blood, whether it's work, whether it's school, whether it's at play. For example, people playing in a team, cricket, football, netball, hockey, badminton, they train together, they live together in hotels for weeks, sometimes months. All right, they get to understand each other better. So certainly they constitute a family, and the resources again need to be at the disposal in terms of training facilities, in terms of nutritional needs, in terms of financial needs, in terms of creating the right mental atmosphere. All of these ingredients will constitute in creating a family unit, and the more they can move towards a family unit, certainly it will help them in producing stronger performances. So we definitely need to extend that definition. So I start off by mentioning, a typical definition, parent or two with their children constituting a family. But could we also look at family as we being coming and descending from a common ancestor? And that point is a very interesting point, in that I would just like to reference some statements from famous scientists and historians pointing to the origins of man and the oneness of humanity. So those points I'm going to raise are extracted from the book A Tribute to African Civilization, written by political scientist and economist Kasala Kamara about 18 years ago. And in that book, he was able to cite the work of the world-famous paleontologist, which is Dr. Leakey and his wife Mary, who did extensive paleontological studies in terms of exploring the origins of man. And they came up with significant findings in different parts of Africa in the 1930s, the 1940s, the 1970s. And they were able to identify different fossil remains, some of them dating 20 million years ago, 4 million years ago, all in the millions, and all pointing to a possible emergence of mankind out of the continent of Africa. He was also able to cite the famous Greek historian Psychologist, who visited Africa around the middle of the 1st century BC, and who reported that the Ethiopians saw themselves not only as the original people of mankind, but actually the Garden of Eden, where all life emerged from. Right? So this was Psychologist, the Greek historian, around that time, in the middle of the 1st century BC, referencing the Ethiopians' conception of the origins of man. Then we had world-famous evolutionary theorist Charles Darwin, who said that in all probability, given the fact that the descendant of mankind would have proceeded, when he presented a perspective of mankind emerging from apes and gorillas, which would have been at variance with the findings of Dr. Leakey's, in that they were able to actually identify the fossil findings were, when they did the paleontological studies, constituted human remains. And there was the famous find of the 12-year-old girl Lucy in Africa, I think Ethiopia, and all pointing to a human origin. But nonetheless, what Charles Darwin stated is that in all probability, given the transcending, according to him, from one species to the next, that the origin of mankind would have emanated in Africa. And then we also had the world-famous Egyptologist, Gerard Massey, stating that, the most ancient of civilization would have been black, and the primordial origins of man coming out of the African continent. Now, this theory has existed for some time, but the interesting thing about it is the confirmation from the paleontological and microbiological studies that has given strong credence to man's origin. So if it is that we take all of those famous persons' perspectives on the both the scientific and historical point of view, we can see that there is a common base of mankind. I remember in 2011 I visited the California Academy of Science, San Francisco, United States of America. And I was happy to see that they had very much consistent with what I'm saying here, that the origins of man dates back to a fossil female linking a female origination out of the continent of Africa. And at the head of that sign at the California Academy of Science, the statement was boldly presented that we are all Africans. Now, when I'm making this statement, this is not to promote one group above the other, but is to make the point that there's that common link. Further investigations have also been able to identify that common genetic link that cuts across all racial groupings. So that definition that we are family, all emerging from a common ancestor, indeed has some serious validity to back it up. And if we could think in that way, I'm saying, as we explore that redefinition of family, the key ingredient is the mere fact of being human. But sadly, as I've said in previous presentations, we live in a divisive world. And because of the divisiveness of the world we live in, groups of persons have been promoted as being superior to others. Cultures have been promoted in being superior to others. So that conception of a common ancestral base, many groups and people of authority and power certainly wouldn't be comfortable with it. But if we can only restore that sense of humanity and see that commonness among each of us, I think we'll be making a giant step in terms of defining family in a way to eradicate a lot of the bitterness, hate, and envy. Of course, it is not as simple as that, because these prejudices and beliefs have become entrenched among many. But if we can lift ourselves, if we can be big enough, if we can grow to that point of realization and consciousness that by the mere fact of being human make us a family, it will go a long way in terms of influencing how we treat each other. And I certainly agree that the mere fact of being human is certainly a good criteria. And the fact that we can say we all emerge from a common ancestor is indeed a very beautiful platform to build on. So that main definition is the one I really would like to leave with you to think about in terms of exploring how we look at family beyond the bloodline, right? Because we need to work as families to make this place a better place. For example, there are governments all over the world, and if you want to look at governments as parents, governments with a sense of humanity and who are good parents will certainly provide the necessary resources for the various families of the respective countries to develop in an effective way. So I remember in my days as a former member of NJAC in Trinidad and Tobago, there was a statement from our Blue Book which stated that work is a right and not a favor. So what that statement was alluding to is that people need to be given the opportunity to be prepared to work in the requisite training, the requisite opportunities, so that they can take care of everyday affairs, the question of buying food, paying a mortgage, paying rent, paying school fees, medical bills, you know. So work in that sense is very important, but it is not only important just in the mere sense of satisfying those needs, but it is important in giving people a sense of being, because when you are engaged, you know, you are not only fulfilling the ability to pay bills, but also at an emotional, psychological, and spiritual level in feeling that you are a useful human being. So governments as good parents need certainly to create the enabling environment. And if things are tough as they are, they need to be able to engage the populace in finding a way that families could be happier and could take care of the ingredients of living. Living, of course, is much more than just satisfying material needs, but certainly they are very important. All right? So whether it's in terms of health services, whether it's in terms of education, housing, schooling, employment, as I stated before, our government certainly is an important parent in taking care of families. Of course, families within the nation can come together, can pool resources, can seek resources from agencies in terms of seeing how they themselves can be self-reliant and entrepreneurial in creating a stronger base for more effective family life. In yesteryear, in the Caribbean, both, citing African communities and East Indian communities, where in the East Indian communities you have the panchayat system, where the elders and them came together and issues of family life in a general sense were brought to their attention for their inputs, their knowledge and their wisdom, and for guidance. Right? In traditional African societies, we have councils of elders where issues of family were adjudicated upon in terms of direction and in terms of ensuring that that family unit remains intact. So in this present time, in a lot of ways, people have pulled apart and kind of focusing on their own individual affairs. We certainly need a return, to familial arrangement that will extend to having the panchayat system, the council of elders, where the wisdom of the elders, the knowledge of the elders can be used to resolve conflict. Their wisdom and knowledge can be used to mentor and coach young people, helping them to have a stronger footing on which to stand. Also the question of identity in terms of families, The role of families, certainly there's a social and a cultural role for families, right? The social role, training people, for example, family life, as I mentioned, in the context of mental health, both family life and mental health should be compulsory subjects in school. And they should be emphasizing on the social role of families, not just individual families, but helping and training young people to build relationships so that they can broaden families in the community sense, in the national sense, in the global sense, building relationships, right? That's a very important skill, because a lot of things do happen through proper relationship. For example, if you take Tobago, there is a huge distrust between the police and the community. So I read a statement just today of former Commissioner James Philbert and a former officer Wade Hain, talking about that lack of trust that exists with the police and the community. And Commissioner Philbert made the correct point that the most important tool of the police is the relationship with the community, who will provide them with information. But because of that high level of distrust, it will take a Herculean task, effort to correct that situation. So I'm saying within the school system, in terms of the social role, we need to emphasize the value of building relationships and how to effectively build relationships, how to effectively work with each other. We need to emphasize the heritage of all groups so that they can have a clear sense of identity of who they are in a racial, ethnic sense, in a family sense, in a community sense, a national and a global sense, so that they can really express themselves freely in terms of who they are. So the social and cultural role of families need to be emphasized, and of course there is very little attention or very little focus that is being placed on such roles now, right? Most people's concern about the family sometimes is merely in an economic sense, right? But keeping a family together requires much more than the economic platform, which should be solid, all right? We need the social, we need the psychological, we need all the elements coming together. We need support from the elders, as I mentioned. We need a whole holistic approach, pulling on all fragments, the social, the cultural, the economic, the sociological, the historical, to give families that impetus and that perspective that they are much more than their blood relatives, and that their roles are very important in improving the conditions of life in their communities, the nation, and the wider world. So I repeat to you, yes, by making individual families stronger, by making greater efforts, by getting the necessary support from institutions, from professionals, psychological and otherwise, certainly can help to make families stronger. The role of government, certainly, the role of the school system, certainly need to put a greater emphasis on what really is the significance of family life. And that definition that we are all family by originating from a common ancestor is one that certainly resonates with me in a very powerful way. And I'm saying, let us remember, by the mere fact of us being human, is enough for us to think of ourselves as family. But could we really expect a change overnight, sometime from the evil intent of so many among us? But we can make one small step by trying to be humane, by trying to introduce any little activity. For example, there are people who cannot read and write. You can help a family by organizing a literacy class. There are some families with their children who have talent for sport. You as a coach can organize clinics to help them grow their talent. There may be some families where the children are showing the inclination to be inventors. Scientists and engineers in the society can have workshops, can have mentoring and coaching sessions to help to encourage them, train them, and empower them to ensure that the development of the world is secure. So that's why I'm saying that the social and cultural roles of families are very, very important. Knowing your heritage, your background, knowing the story behind it, knowing how we have come together in the Caribbean, living together, constituting a different kind of family, but being aware of each other's experience, all of that will help to strengthen families and to make the nation stronger. So I repeat to you, let us remember our humanity and let us take steps, big and small, in whatever sphere, to make family life stronger and better. It depends on all of us. It depends on governments, it depends on us, it depends on international agencies. When they speak about achieving the millennial goals by 2030, certainly we will need strong families to do that. So I leave you with a message. We are one, and the quicker we could move towards the realization that we are one by our humanity and that we should live in a way to uplift humanity until such time family life may suffer. But for us to live a better life, it is our responsibility to do better. So I leave you with that message in terms of a redefinition of family, in terms of seeing new meaning in family, and for you to play your rightful role and make your contribution in making families stronger. So I thank you and I remind you of our services, whether it's a workshop, whether it's a counseling session, a coaching session, or ongoing courses. We remind you to give us a call at 1-868-778-5141, 1-868-779-2544, or email us at leadershipwithadifference@gmail.com. I know the message resonated with you from this presentation, and of course we ask you to subscribe to the channel, like the videos, like our other videos, share the videos, comment on the videos, encourage your friends and family to also subscribe. So in the meantime, between time, ponder on this discussion in family and make a step forward to improve your family situation and improve the situation of families all over the world. So I say bye for now and see you next week for another powerful presentation. See you then.